Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another Friday. We are here. We're talking about breaking into cybersecurity. We have an amazing guest. She'll be on in just a little bit, but in the meantime, let's give you some background on this podcast. If you're new to us, what we do is we interview individuals that have broken into the cybersecurity field within the past 5 years so that they can share their tips, tricks, and journey along the way to help inspire future generations of individuals looking to break in or transition from other roles. Um, if you are viewing us live on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit the notification button. That way, next time we go live, you could be notified that we are going live. If you're listening to us after the fact on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe there, share with your friends, share with family, share with anyone interested in breaking into cybersecurity, because that is the whole point of this podcast. Today, we have Angela that is joining us. She comes from a legal and fine arts background and kind of got the cybersecurity bug and broke her way over. We met a little bit ago on a virtual conference, and we've been connected ever since. I love her story, so I'm glad I was able to finally get her on. Let's bring her on. Hey, how you doing?
Hi, Christophe. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Of course.
So, give us a little bit of background on your history. Like you mentioned that you had a fine arts and legal background. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So I like to kind of reiterate, like, I think I'm in the era of, when we were kind of graduating high school or in high school, even people were like, you should figure out what you want to do, but like also do something you really enjoy. Otherwise you'll hate it, right? Um, And, the thing I was kinda good at was, like, art and being creative. I was good at other things like math and science, but I didn't really know, like, what options or if that was something that, I wanted to study. So my parents were kinda just like, "Well, you're good at art, you should just do that." And I was like, "Are you sure? Like, is it really?" And then, like, a couple more times, it's like, "But you're, like, 100% positive that that's what you're suggesting to me. Okay." So I did that, and it was good. Like, of course, you had to take all your undergrad stuff too, right? And so I learned other things, but I still like I couldn't decide on one thing. I leaned towards anything to do with technology. So I was like doing graphic design and then using computers for that. And then I was really into photography, even though it was like a lot of manual stuff, also digital and like using lights and all the things that come along with editing and whatnot. So I always kind of like leaned towards the more techie art side, I guess. But also really liked ceramics. So it was very confusing for me to try to figure out what to do next. And I kind of was like, maybe I should do something else and have art be like my passion that I do outside of work and get a job that can support this passion. Because if I just work as an artist, like I can't do anything with that small amount of money. So um, I took some time just like working random jobs and then ended up getting a job at a law firm because the the person who was looking for someone else to work with them was kind of like, we need someone else in the office. Are you good with computers? And I was like, is there anyone our age that isn't good with, I mean, like, what's the criteria here? Like, how, like, what's good, And I was like, I could use it, which obviously I was a little more proficient than that, but, so that got me into it, and then I was like, I kinda like this. I liked the research and the thought process behind, like, finding out stuff about cases, and it was just, like, all over the place and kinda wild. So, ended up getting my 2nd bachelor's, in, like, pre-law because the core the core courses were the same. So I was able to knock that out rather quickly. And to me, I was like, okay, this is a much more like usable degree. Um, and it can like actually get me somewhere. Where the art stuff, I was kind of just like, I don't know what to do with this. If I work in a gallery, somebody's got to die. Like there's no open positions. And so did the pre-law thing, and then I was like applying to law schools, and I wanted to do like digital technology in law offices, and so I was like applying to law schools, and then I waited, because you have to wait for a response, and like in that time I was like, do I want to be an attorney? Like, no. And then I was like, do I want to be like over 100 grand in debt? No. And so I was just like, uh, I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, it took me so long to figure this out. So then I was like, I just want to work with computers and technology, but like I don't know how to do that. So I had friends who were developers, programmers, and I was like, what do you do? And they pretty much like went to computer science, like went to school for computer science at tech schools, and they were like, I don't know, this is what I do, but I don't know if that's what you would want to do. And it was kind of true. I was like, I don't know. And just continued to research. I ended up reading an article about cybersecurity one day, and finally I was like, this kind of makes sense. This sounds like it describes my personality, and like the fact that there's so many open roles and every industry needs a cybersecurity professional. I was like, this kind of makes sense just mathematically, even if I don't like it, right? So so that started my trend of like, okay, I'm just going to become obsessed with cybersecurity and like do a prep course and go to a boot camp, and then just it exploded from there. So
Let's dig into that high level overview of it. Exploded from there and refine it back. So
yeah.
I'm guessing at this point you're at a law firm and you started exploring cybersecurity. Let's talk about your approach to exploring cybersecurity and the types of training that you did, the types of resources that you used, because I'm sure there's others out there that might be taking a similar path as you. For example, some of the comments says, good stuff, listening to your approach. We also have another one saying, hi, Chris, hi, Angeli. So let's share a little bit about that. What was your approach?
Thanks, George. Thanks, Arjani. Hey, guys. Actually, I had no job when I read that article. I was moving from Miami to Denver, and I like quit my job, had some money saved, and was like, let's go. So, which is kind of my personality anyway. But yeah, like read the article, and there was a in-person boot camp where I was moving. So like a couple blocks, like I could walk to this place. So shortly after like reading that article, I was like, where like would I get education? And I was like, oh my gosh, this boot camp is close to where I'm going to be living. So that's interesting. So I kind of looked into it, but not like too hardcore, because obviously like get settled in a new place, get a job, and then figure that thing out. So one of the things that one of my mentors really likes to share with some of his other mentees is the fact that my first job there was scooping ice cream. Like I chose that job because I love ice cream, and I didn't necessarily need money for like a while. So I was like, this is cool. Like I'll just get free ice cream and like have money for stuff.
Nice.
Can pay my bills with like what I've saved. So so I intentionally like got that job to like transition into whatever it was that I decided to do there. And then I took this prep course at the place that was the in-person boot camp. So at that time they didn't have the option for online there. I'm not sure if they do now, but I was like, okay, I can do this like 4-week prep course, learn the basics, learn, like what a virtual machine is, some bash commands, and like literally just the basics. Now, I do believe that someone could look that up online, like it's all available, but their thing was like, if you do this, then you can like use that to get into the boot camp or whatever, like the money you pay for this thing. And I was like, that makes sense. So I'll probably do that. But I ended up not going with that boot camp because I wanted the online option. So I found another boot camp somewhere else that offered the online option. So I got a real job, and I worked as a receptionist by choice. I worked as a receptionist at a law firm. And so this is where he's like, she was a receptionist. Well, there's nothing wrong with receptionist. I've been receptionist, but he was just like, ice cream, reception, cybersecurity, and he makes it like it's really dramatic, but it's cool. So I chose that on purpose so I could kind of not have the stress of being
Hmm.
like a legal assistant or
Unemployed. Yeah.
paralegal, well, or being a paralegal with a lot of stress
Okay.
regardless, and also trying to learn a new subject for each career transition, right? So like I had it really, really good, and I set that up for myself,
Hmm.
being like, no kids, no obligations, really. Like I was able to do that, and I'm really grateful for it.
Hmm.
Um, so I worked like 9 to 5 at 5 p.m. since I was Mountain Time. The boot camp started right at 6, so it was like perfect for me. But I
Yeah.
did plan all of this out ahead of time. So,
Nice.
so I did that for a few months. The biggest part of that was like being able to network within the boot camp. But I don't know if you want to ask a different question. I don't know how far you want me to go with this, but
Well, let's
that's
talk about what you learned in the boot camp.
yeah.
How tactical or how do you feel it went? Like, do you feel that it really prepared you for what you needed? Because I know a lot of people are looking into boot camps as one of the options. So, what was your point of view on that?
Yeah, so for me, I was like, I'm definitely not going back and getting another bachelor's degree. Like, that's not something I'm about to do. Like, I'm not trying
Hmm.
to collect these pieces of paper. But the fact that I do believe that the fact that I had at least a bachelor's degree, regardless of what it's in, is helpful because, it shows people that you're willing to learn and study and kind of focus on whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Um, but, the flexibility to like have the option to get that hands-on training with a human, whether it's in person or virtual,
Hmm.
I think really helped push me to learn stuff. Like I do believe that everything in that specific course could have been done by someone if they planned it out themselves, like just online with resources, right? But it would have probably taken much longer. So it took me
Hmm.
6 months to transition to a new career, which is pretty phenomenal. And that was the other thing, is like I don't want to wait another year to switch careers. Like I'm ready to do this and commit to
Hmm.
it. So in the boot camp, it was a lot of like hands-on labs, and then you get some of the background history depending on like which professor you have that day or whatever. But
Hmm.
the instructors are mostly like practicing professionals, so they'll give you their insight into like what it's actually been like for them, which I think is really important. You get that kind of behind the scenes of like, this is what it's like to be this role, or like these
Hmm.
are the challenges I've struggled with. And on your own, you're just kind of like, that position sounds cool, or this one sounds terrible, and there's no like basis for any of that information. But yeah, I think the hands-on labs is what's the most important, and being able to kind of like work through some of those with another person,
Hmm.
and bounce ideas off of, because as I'm sure you know, like you can work on something for like 20 hours and not see the one like thing that's wrong with it, and somebody else will be like, it's just that right there. Right? Or just troubleshooting with each other. It's really nice. But yeah, so having that kind of like buddy system and help, I think, is huge. And then
Hmm.
like one of the things that I noticed, and this is from experiences, I've heard people in like more traditional university type programs be like, we're just reading a book. Like we've just been reading for months and like talking and just reading and
Hmm.
talking, and we haven't done any labs. And so it's like, I think if you do go that traditional route, like definitely look into what you're going to be doing in those courses, because if you don't get the hands-on like training, people are still going to expect you to know that
Yeah.
with your degree. So you're going to have to do extra work if they don't teach it to you.
Okay, okay. So it sounds like it prepared you, it gave you hands-on experience. Let's talk about that transition now. Did the boot camp help you? What was your approach in searching for a role? Let's go into all those nitty-gritty details.
Yeah. And just to be clear, that boot camp did provide a lot of what I would say are the fundamentals. I do
Hmm.
think it was more tailored to like startups, and so it was like Linux based.
Hmm.
Uh, so make that decision on your own, whether you want to do like Linux and or PowerShell or whatever you may want to use,
Hmm.
whether it's Bash or PowerShell or Linux or a PC or whatever, because that's kind of like going to tailor the jobs you get and stuff like that. So yeah, so the transition was kind of, so like my story is like, I acknowledge the fact that I was super lucky. Like I worked hard, but also like things kind of fell into place nicely for me. I mean, one of the other things that you have to keep in mind is like soft skills are very, very important, and networking, actual networking and human networking are also very important. So I did make the I took the extra step to like do as much networking as I could. I was like going to in-person ISACA meetings, which like
Hmm.
I had no business at these ISACA meetings really. Like at the beginning, like yes, I was welcome, but also like couldn't contribute, didn't know what they were talking about, was just like, this is the only thing near me, I'm gonna go. And I
Hmm.
would just sit there and like listen,
Hmm.
and and it was a really good way to gauge my learning, because like first couple of meetings it was like, I don't know anything anybody's talking about, but I'm still here, and they'd see your face, so it's like a good way to like get people to know you. But eventually you're like, oh, I sat through half of that, that's great, and understood it. And then you're like, oh, I understood this whole thing, this is awesome, like I've come so far already. And then they'll do things like, and this is, many organizations do this, where it's like you put on a name tag that says I'm looking for a job or I'm hiring. And
Hmm.
so just that simple thing can like get you somewhere, even if it's not necessarily a job, it is helpful. So I did things like that during my boot camp. And look at this, it's reversed. And and like made the extra effort. So you
Hmm.
do have to do that. Like I think some boot camps are better at others in like giving you access to people who are hiring, or organizations that are like can help you with resume review, or here's a pool of open jobs and they'll interview our um, students or whatever. But
Hmm.
mine didn't really do that. But I think that's part of the like virtual package, is like you don't get the in-person, like that's extra with the in-person thing, which is fine.
Yeah.
But it was like we got advice from our professors that were like, apply early, apply often, and network as much as you can. So don't wait till the end of the boot camp to be like, oh, it's time for a job, because like then you have to start the application process,
Hmm.
and kind of go through those rejections and acceptances, and then try to interview or see what it is like. So, getting as many interviews as you can as soon as you can, so you can practice that too, is also very important.
Well, yeah, one of the comments is very inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Um, Another comment is very informative advice. Thank you. And another comment was how much was the boot camp, the syllabus? I mean, you don't have to give the specific
Yeah.
boot camp, but you could give a ballpark.
Yeah, and there's a few now, but I think it's anywhere from like between $5,000 and $10,000. So if
Yeah.
you haven't gone to college and already like racked up that debt, or maybe even if you have and you want to rack up some more, like me, you just keep going. But it's way more affordable than like getting a computer science bachelor's degree, like
Mhm.
anywhere. So that's a plus. But also the investment is like, you have the opportunity to spend half a year learning this stuff for that amount of money, and changing careers to something that's likely going to pay you more than you're making right now, unless you're just doing it because you are super interested and you hate whatever you're doing now that pays you a lot, whatever. But
Yeah.
you're not going to make like minimum wage, hopefully, and have to struggle to pay it back. Like the return on investment is very high.
And in regards to your application process, so your professor said apply often,
Yep.
apply early. So tell us about your application process. Was it like one and done from the people that you were networking with at the ISACA group? What was it like?
It was interesting, because at first I was like, you know what? And I actually spent a lot of the boot camp studying for the Security Plus exam, because I was like, well, this makes sense. It's all the same material. And then I ended up taking the Network Plus, because I was like, wait, I struggle with networking. I need to like learn this first. And then I was like, wait, should I work in IT? Like, I think I need to work in IT before I do anything. Like, I know I just learned all this stuff, but I'm missing out because I didn't like see the whole picture of doing that prior. And because I
Mhm.
had people in the boot camp with me who were currently in IT, and they were just like, don't do it. Like, you already know more about security than anybody working in, like most people in IT that just like haven't,
Yeah.
done security stuff yet. And I was like, but the big picture. And they're like, it's not going to matter. And So I did apply for like an IT position and another one, and I almost took one, and then I was like, I don't know, I think they're right, and so I was applying for some cybersecurity positions of like, security analyst one or whatever it may be, but it takes some companies a long time to reply. Like everyone's busy, like no one's just in. They're like, I don't know anyone in cybersecurity that's just like, I don't know, like I played solitaire for a long time today and then and then like did a little work, and like everyone's very busy. So don't expect anybody to respond to you immediately. Um, so like that happened, and like after I had actually accepted a position, I would get some, oh, we would like to bring you in for an interview, and I was like, too bad, that would have been cool, but
Yeah.
thanks. And then some rejections too, but networking within the boot camp is what got me an opportunity to interview with my first company. So one of the people that I was in the boot camp with, who was working in IT, like applied for a role somewhat early on in the boot camp. He got the position, and he did such a good job in that position at that company that they were like, "What boot camp did you go to? Like, we need another. Like, we have another opening. Can you refer people?" And he was like, "Angela." And so he referred me, and I interviewed, and I got the role. But like again, like some of the interview process was not super technical because it was entry level, but it was also like, okay, you have X experience from your past jobs. Like it's not tech, but it like you can deal with difficult people. You can like, be
Transferable skills.
professional. Yeah, like you can professionally write an email and like communicate. So I think that was a really big deal. Plus I knew the stuff from the boot camp. So I got that position,
Mhm.
and I was very lucky because it was like a really great. It was like a vulnerability assessment specialist, which is just like passive scanning and providing reports. So it's like baby's version of becoming a pen tester, like
Mhm.
step one, right? So that was very, very nice, like a great transition, and I acknowledge that that's super like lucky, and
Mhm.
not everybody's journey will look like that. So I do hear a lot about people like applying to like hundreds and hundreds of jobs, but I try to give the advice that was given to me, which is like, make sure your resume looks good. There's certain like cybersecurity resumes are different. Cybersecurity is like something totally different. So the format of every other resume that you had is probably going to look different. Like skills at the top, and then go down. But that's another conversation. But like just thinking about these kinds of things, tailoring your resume to like each position, making some connections and seeing if there's anybody who could give you insight into what it's like for this job or before you apply, whatever that may be. So it's just like doing all that extra work and not blind applying, right?
Mhm. Oh, definitely. Like one of the things that I've posted, and I continue to post it. And whenever someone says they want to break into cybersecurity, I'm like, well, here's a challenge for someone looking for a role, and it doesn't matter what role, right? Because it could be literally anything.
Hmm.
Um, look at the title, find 6 or 7 job descriptions across different industries, and summarize them. See where you fit into it, where your strengths, where your weaknesses, and does that really align with your skill set? Are you
Hmm.
really interested in it? Then reach out to people in those roles and start doing informational interviews. Like, what's a day in the life of a SOC analyst? V1, V2. Like, do you really want to sit there and look at alerts all day? Maybe, maybe not. Each
Right.
person's different. See if it
Exactly.
aligns with your passion. And then, now that you've done the informational interviews, you probably have some rapport with them. They can help you. They can help you if the company's looking. They can help you if they see something in their network. Kind of like you said, use networking, use those types of approaches. So I love your advice that it really does align with like those 3 bullet points. Um,
Right.
so now that you've gotten your more than first role, like how do you keep up with cybersecurity? It's changing every day. Like what tips and tricks do you have for folks?
Yeah. So I would say first off, like keep your keep an open mind to like what position you have and what you might have next, because that can change. Like I wasn't necessarily looking for a new role when I got one. But I was kind of like, yeah, I'll try it. Okay, that seems like like a good progression to me, like building this career, right?
Mhm.
So keep an open mind. Um, Sorry, what was the initial question? I like.
Like, what do you do to keep up? How do you keep up
Oh
with
yeah. Okay.
ever-changing
So,
industry?
so I created a Twitter account just for cybersecurity purposes. Like, I didn't want to share like personal stuff or follow people's like just like comments for the most part. I was
Mhm,
like, there's a lot of good cybersecurity professionals on Twitter posting important things and relevant stuff. So I built out like my Twitter based on those professionals. Now, of course, they do share like their opinions on other things, and
mhm,
that's in there, and that's fine. But like, I know that the majority of my content is probably going to be cyber related, or I can find a lot of good information, articles, and things going on. So that's
mhm,
one of the ways. There's trainings that I like to keep up with, and some of it was like before my current employer wasn't like freely available to me. So I kind of like moved around to like there's like IT Pro TV
mhm,
videos, there's YouTube, there's like Professor Messer stuff, right? Um, so like just using all the things that are freely available. And then of
mhm.
course you could like do paid LinkedIn. Like I tried that for a little bit. I think I'm just dropping all these now. I don't know if we're supposed to do this, but plural site, like there's just so many different methods. And I think you just need to decide which works best for you.
Mhm.
So there's all these trainings that, can update your skill set. But as far as like news and the happenings, right? Like follow some blogs, follow some podcasts, and and just put it on while you're doing something else. You don't have to like actively listen to every single one, but engulfing yourself in the cybersecurity news and like community is super important.
I know I met you through a presentation at a virtual conference.
Yeah,
What was that experience like, and how did it help your career?
it was GrimCon, right? So
Yes.
Um, it was awesome. It was like right after the pandemic started, and it was actually my first presentation. So I was very grateful for it being virtual because I'm like, I can sit here and just look at you and talk, and then like no one else exists, right? So it took it took the stress off of that experience a little bit and was really great. What I really liked about that one was they provided you with like a mentor type person who had given presentations and could advise you as a
Mhm.
newbie. So that was really cool. But I really enjoyed it. I think I did another one or two for different things that year. But yeah, it was great. Like you get to like participate and then listen to all the other ones, and it kind of makes you feel, I don't know, more part of the community, right? Like
Yeah.
actually presenting and then like listening to other people knowing that they just went through the same thing gives it the extra like
A-
extra boost, right? So yeah,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
definitely suggest presenting at any time. Like just try it, like it will never hurt. It'll always just be like a thing that you can do. And if you enjoy it, do it again.
Absolutely. And I mean, everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different background. So we definitely need like that diversity of thought. And if you have an interesting point of view on a particular problem set, go out and share it with the community, whether you have your own video blog, you present at a virtual conference or at a real conference once they come back.
Hmm.
Um, Definitely do that. One of the questions before we wrap up is Carlos asks, you might have already shared this if I missed it, but did the boot camp provide exposure to different avenues of the world of cyber, and how did you decide what to focus on?
So great question. I think narrowing down what I didn't want to focus on was easier than what I did. So, so I was like, every single person I talk to almost wants to be a pen tester. So like, they're gonna take all those jobs. So I'm gonna apply to the other things. like, like just again, mathematically, like this makes sense in my favor.
Mhm,
I didn't get to like necessarily choose for the first role, right? Like that kind of was like, this is an entry level position. I know I can do these things and I need to get that first job.
mhm,
Knowing that it wasn't going to be a forever job or
mhm,
extremely long term job,
mhm,
and not necessarily like a path. It was just like entry level, get the first one, then you'll feel more comfortable with the experience of having like the job in cybersecurity. to get you to the next step. So not necessarily deciding is what I did. It's like,
And I mean that's a great approach because there's so many different roles and each company might do the same role differently. And you might be
exactly.
very comfortable at one company in one role and not with another company in the exact same role.
Yeah.
So it's a balance of like culture, role, everything like that.
Yeah, even the teams, right? Like you may feel comfortable on one team and not another in the same exact position. Also, like I don't think there's any way to just read about a position and know that you're going to like it. Like you have to do the job. You have to do the job, and then you'll know the things you do and do not like about it.
Absolutely. Wow. We're already at a half hour. Time just flew by.
I know.
The last question that I like to ask is if you had to summarize everything that you just shared into one piece of advice for those potentially looking to follow in your footsteps, what would that be?
I love this because recently, a couple months ago, I used it in a presentation, and it was basically say yes to everything until you can't physically, like you're just too busy and you need to like maintain work-life balance.
Mhm.
But by yes, I mean like tell yourself yes and like take opportunities. So yes, like you can get the certs. No one necessarily talks about how many times they fail it. They talk about when they pass. So don't worry about how many times you have to take it. Yes, you can go to the meetings now. They're probably virtual, but like yes, you belong there. It doesn't matter your experience level. But most importantly, like once you start learning this stuff, you're a cybersecurity person. Like don't think that you're always a student. Like you're about to be a cybersecurity professional. Like act like it. Tell yourself that. The more you tell yourself that, the more you'll believe it. It's going to be true. So just keep saying yes to opportunities, and yeah, it'll get you. It'll get you somewhere good.
I love it. I love it. Having that yes attitude. Well, everyone, thank you so much. If you're joining us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button. If you're listening to us on podcast, subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and share with anyone that might be interested. Maybe her story can inspire other women and other individuals to come into this field. We definitely need that diversity. Not just of gender, but of thought, of background, of experience, whether legal, fine arts, whatever it is, we need them all in cybersecurity. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Thanks, Christoph.